What's up everyone, Adam from Cape Crawlers, and this is the Little Guy Racing Parts Ultra 24 build part 1. Welcome back to the channel everybody. Got a fun one for you today. We're going to kick off a new build. Not just any build, we're going to kick off the Little Guy Racing Parts Ultra 24 build. Now, this is going to be a kit build straight from the ground up. We just got a whole bin full of parts and pieces. We're going to assemble this thing together and we're going to transform it from a bin full of parts into a fire-breathing Ultra 24 rock-smashing little monster. So this is going to be a multi-part series. I'm going to have to break this up into different videos and then we'll put it all together for a build series. So I figured in this first video, my goal is to go over the parts list. I'll show you what I got in the box, all the parts and pieces, because like I said, this does come in a builder's kit. So we're going to be doing a lot of assembly. It's going to be a lot of work that goes into this, which I'm excited about because I love to tinker. This is going to be a great project. So we're going to go through the parts. We're going to see if we can identify a strategy on how to put everything together. And then I want to start painting. I've got a very specific theme in my mind for what I want to paint this thing and how I want it to come out, kind of the character that I'm hoping to flesh out of this build. It's going to be really cool. We'll look at the powertrain, what my plans are for powering this beast. Before we do so, did you guys know that Jordan from Little Guy Racing Parts actually races the Ultra 4 trucks? And that the Ultra 24 was actually inspired by his race truck? How cool is that, right? That's super cool. So shout out to Jordan for that awesome day job. So with that, why don't we jump in and check out the parts, and then we'll start working on assembly and some paint. All right, let's check this out. So let's start unloading our parts here. When I said I got a bin full of parts, I wasn't kidding. Let's start unpacking this here and see what we got. All right, first things first, here's the chassis. It's a 3D printed chassis here, ready for paint. I'm just kind of studying this. This is the first time I've really dove into this, so we're doing this together here. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it based on what I know of the Ultra 24s that I've seen assembled. It's got a good feel to it. It's solid, real nice and stiff. It's cool. What else we got? Shocks. So we got the long travel double barrel shocks we're going to put on this thing. For the wheels, we've got the black torque beadlock wheels. These are going to be awesome. We're going to wrap those in my favorite tire at the moment, which is the Swamp King tires. Absolutely adore these tires. Here's the body panels. So it all comes in this kit here. We got links in there too. Body panels. I see a servo mount. Let's open this up. Take a closer look here. Don't want to lose anything. Let's see what we got. All right, so here's our body panels. Very cool. All right. I'm not going to try to mock this up right now. I can kind of see it coming together here. Yeah, doors. Yeah, okay, I can see it. This is cool. Very nice components, I gotta say. I like the printing on these. I like it. That's cool. Got the logo etched in there. Links. What else we got? We can ignore the 3D printed links because we also got the billet high clearance linkage set for this, which is going to be awesome. For the drivetrain here, we got, you guys know I love those Super 8s. So we got the Super 8 axles, the billet Super 8 axles front and back. That's what we're going to do with this thing. For the axle setup, we got brass knuckles for the front. I got my hardware kits, bearings. We got the Extreme CVDs up front. I'm loving these on the comp build. So I think that this is the same axle setup that I've got on the comp build. So I'm really pumped to replicate that on this because it's worked fantastic on that build. Billet steering linkage for the Super 8s. More bearings to go in the axles. and then the rear axle shafts. So this is basically our kit here. So looking at it, it doesn't look terrible. You know, I was initially a little apprehensive, a little nervous about the builder's kit, but there's not a ton of pieces. You know, linkage aside, which is intuitive enough, there's not a lot of body panels or small bits and pieces to put together, so I'm optimistic that we'll be able to put this together fairly easily. But what I do want to do is start kind of laying this out and getting ready for paint. Oh, and we'll talk about the drivetrain, the motor, what I want to put in this thing. So for the motor, we've got the FuriTech Rocketman combo. Now, we had this in Axel's monster truck build, and it was too much. He admitted that it was just too much power to control in the monster truck. But after looking at the Ultra 4 trucks and kind of studying the Ultra 4 trucks, I feel like this is a great motor for this rig because they're meant to go fast. They're meant to pound over the desert and rocks. They're almost like a rock bouncer / crawler. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go with speed and power with the brushless Godzilla Inrunner motor and the Rocketman combo. I will most likely throw in one of my micro receivers and run this on the Avatar transmitter for space savings and compact electronics, and 2, to be able to toggle back and forth between driving modes and custom throttle curves and things like that. The full FuriTech suite I think will work really well and will allow me to use the Godzilla motor a little more effectively than we did in the monster truck. So that's the plan. That's what we're going to do with this thing. So the next step, I'm going to start kind of laying this out and getting ready for paint. So let's go check that out. All right, here we are getting ready for paint. I got everything laid out on my table here, which I'll show you in a minute, but I did want to go over the color scheme that I'm doing with this thing. So we're going to do, the chassis is going to be bright red. So we got this red here, this glossy bright red. We're going to do all of the kind of the tubular chassis in this red finish here. Everything else, the body panels and everything, is going to be in this matte black. This is actually just spray in bed liner for trucks. And there's a reason behind that, which I'll explain a little bit later, but I really want that rugged, tough, flat black look. Even more so than paint, I want it kind of raw like this bed liner. So it's going to look really cool. All the panels are going to be in this matte black. So let's take a look at the panels here and we'll start laying some coats on. So our paint is still drying on the panels, and I'm not quite ready to show you what I've got going on for a scheme on those yet, but I have finished the chassis itself. I did this kind of a rust red finish and went over it with some matte clear. So it's got kind of this unfinished, kind of raw red look to it. So that's going to be our chassis. We keep the rest of the components black. So now what we're going to do, we're going to get into the base chassis assembly here. Now to do this kit, you do need frame rails and a skid plate from an SCX24. I have some deadbolt pieces here. So here's our frame rails. We're going to use this. So I need to strip this down to get to just the bare frame rails. And I need the skid plate as well. So I'm going to start disassembling this real quick. So here are our 2 frame rails and our skid plate. So throughout the assembly of this video, I'm going to be referencing a Miguel Cortez video that he put out, I think it was about almost a year ago now, assembling one of these Ultra 24 chassis. Now there's not a lot of information about these online, so Miguel's video is very helpful, and I will link it in the description down below, but I'm going to be following the steps that he outlined in his video there. So I'm going to do my best to mimic what he did and dig in here now. So I do remember one of the things he said was to do the shock towers in the rear first and then slide it into the chassis. Okay, so this is our ESC tray right here in our rear shock towers. Now I think I should be able to slide this in here and start mounting this up. The chassis should fit around the frame. There we go. There we go. Look at that. Just, man, it barely even need bolts. It fits in there perfectly. Now next I'm going to do our front shock towers here. Now these slides into the frame rails up here. There we go, those slide in there. So the arched piece, they fit right inside the frame rails. The arch piece runs down the bend in the frame. And I'm going to pop this back in the chassis, looking good. And then now you can see these are our front shock towers. So excellent. So I'm going to start putting this thing together. All right, we're pretty solid. It feels really good in there. Fit excellent. Now what we're going to do is slide the battery tray in on this thing. So now let me see, which direction does this go? I think that's it right there, and I should not have done those bolts. I wonder if I should have done this first. Let's try it. Look at that. We're making great progress here. This is actually going really fast. I'm really impressed with how well the 3D printed pieces fit to the frame rail and the tubular chassis. Everything lines up perfectly and there is no slop in it whatsoever. It is tight and accurate. Very impressive so far. Nice and solid. So I think I'm going to do the skid plate now. And looking what else I need to bolt up here. I'm in pretty good shape. Another couple bolts here and there. But then that will pretty much be the chassis already. Very cool. There it is, my friends. Look at that. Beautiful. That was not as daunting as I thought it was going to be. It went together very simple. Very thankful for Miguel's video. Otherwise, I would have been 2 or 3 times longer, I'm sure. But that went pretty quick. So very, very happy with it. So not going to do the body panels just yet. I'm going to do the linkage now. And then we'll start assembling the axles. And then we'll put a roller together and I'll mock up the panels so you guys can see what it's going to look like. But pretty awesome, right? Coming together. The linkage is now all in. Got these billet high clearance links. I need to check and verify that I've got the right drive shaft lengths. I think they said deadbolt rear and C10 rear. I would imagine that the deadbolt rear goes in the back and the C10 rear goes in the front. I believe I've got both of those handy, so we should be good from the drive shaft perspective. One thing that I did not check was if the Godzilla motor fit. So I should have mocked that up. So I'm going to pop that in here and see if we have to do any modifications. I need to check on that now. Oh yeah, this is going to throw a wrench in our plans. This thing is not even close. I would have to cut the tubular chassis to get this in there. Man, this is going to have to take some thinking at this point if I want to do that or not. Oh, I really don't want to. But if I cut that brace, it also means cutting the hood panel also. Man, what a bummer. I knew it was going to be tight and there might be some mods, but I didn't realize it was going to be that tight. I don't know if I reverse the skid plate, if I can flip this thing around and see if that'll fit. Nope, I don't think that's going to go either. Bummer. Man, that's too bad. Well, kind of back to the drawing board from the motor perspective, which is a shame. But I do have, that just arrived, I've got the next iteration of the Little Guy Racing Parts motors. So maybe I'll put a brand new Predator 50-turn motor in here. It's red. These have a new white casing on them, which is pretty cool. I could put the red 50-turn motor in there. That looked pretty good. And that should pop right in with no issues. So, to be determined. I'll think about what I want to do with the motor. But I have these as an option if I want to go that route, or if I want to start cutting and hacking to get the Godzilla in there. I don't think I do, honestly, because it's going to kind of have to cut the body panels, all that, and I just really don't think I want to do that with this build. So I'll probably end up doing a brushed motor, most likely the Predator 50-turn, because I like that motor. It's got plenty of power. So to be continued on the motors, but let's continue on the chassis. All right, my friends, we're making some really good progress here. So I got the axles all assembled, got the wheels built. Let's look at the axles first. So these gorgeous billet Super 8 axles, these went together really smooth. This is my third set of these axles that I'm using on a build, and they just work so good. I just love how this billet looks, combined with the gold from the brass knuckles and the black billet steering arm, and this thing just works so good. And the brass covers on the back, these are just such gorgeous pieces of hardware. They are really just amazing to look at. For the gears, so I did stock gears in the back, and then I did the 23% overdrive gears in the front. I wasn't going to do that initially when I wanted to put the Godzilla motor in it, but now that it's going to have a little less power, probably be focusing more on crawling, so we're going to do the overdrive gears in the front. So I went with the 23% Little Guy Racing Parts overdrive gears in this, and again, super easy install. If you want to see a little more detailed assembly on these, I'd encourage you to check out my comp build series. But in this regard, I just wanted to show you the finished product here. One thing to note, the 3D printed Emax servo mount tray fit perfectly. And it's just an ideal fit for the Emax, which I guess it should because it's a Emax servo tray. But just very impressed again with the 3D printed parts from this kit. Everything works so perfectly. Just very, very nice fit and finish on these things. For the wheels and tires, I went with these Torque black beadlocks. These are glorious looking. I love the black. They look so good and so aggressive with the Swamp King tires on here. This is going to look awesome on the build. I really like the contrast with the silver screws on these black wheels. This glossy black looks really nice. So these are good. I did not vent the tires because the wheels themselves are vented, so it's still got that nice squish to them. I'm running just the foams that came with these, no special inserts or anything, so we're going to run this setup for a little while. But we got tires and wheels ready to go. So I think the next step, I am going to grab my shocks, and we're going to assemble everything, and we'll get a roller together, and then I'll mock up the panels, and that'll probably close it out for this episode. So let's get to assembling this thing. Here it is, pretty much fully assembled here. We've got a good rolling chassis here, just like I wanted to do with this video. So it went together really, really well. I'm just so impressed with how the 3D printed components. I know I've said that 3 or 4 times in this video, but everything went together so smoothly, and it was much easier than I was expecting. So the axles and everything on here just looks so mean. This thing, the stance on this thing is super aggressive. I love the black and red contrast. I think it looks awesome. The axles, again, this is just mechanical art with these axle setups. These things just look so good. I will say, with the theme I'm going with this build, this is probably the one time that I wish I had gotten the raw 3D printed material, because everything else is just kind of that raw, gritty, kind of industrial feel. And then you've got these beautiful billet axles on here. So I think the raw 3D printed would have looked better with my theme, but in any case, these things look fantastic, and I'm really pumped with it. It's going to look awesome. So a couple of things that I've done here that are a little different. One thing I'm trying with the shocks is that I took the soft spring that came with these double barrels and I cut them in half and I put them on there. And that's just because I want a little bit of dampening, because if you remember at the beginning of this video, the goal of this build is to make it like an Ultra 4, where it can hit things hard. It's going to be able to go over obstacles hard and fast and charge over things. So I want a little bit of dampening. So I'm trying this kind of half droop approach. So it's got a little bit of dampening there, but still sits nice and low. For my initial shock position, I've just put the shocks kind of right in the middle of the towers, and I'll tweak that as I get into the build and get it running. But just for the sake of putting it together here, I just threw them kind of right in the middle to mock it up and get a good idea of how it's going to sit. So what I want to do right now is just kind of mock up the panels, because I've done a custom paint on this for my theme, and I really want to show you guys this to kind of cap off this video. I'll show you what I'm doing for a paint scheme and how I want this thing to look. So when I saw the Ultra 24 initially and I was thinking about what to do for paint, what immediately grabbed me was the shape of the front end, and for some reason I just thought of the Punisher. So that's what I've been going with, kind of this raw, gritty look, because I want this thing to be like the Punisher vehicle. So what I've done is I did that spray on bed liner, because I want it to feel like, the Punisher, he's raw and he's angry and he's out for blood. So he just assembles this crazy vehicle, and I can just imagine, taking raw sheet metal and just spraying over it with bed liner and then just throwing the Punisher logo on here. So that's exactly the look I was going for. So it's totally imperfect, which is what I wanted. I wanted it to look just kind of haphazardly sprayed on there, and I think it achieves that. So this is going to be the look I'm going for. So let's mock this up a little bit to see how it's going to look. That snaps right on there. And then there's your hood. I don't have any bolts for the hood, but that gives you a sense of how it's going to look. So from a top-down perspective, you'll see the full skull. And then as you change your visual perspective, it'll break that up a little bit. But I still think it's enough. It fills these panels really well, and you get the gist of it from a lot of different angles. So I felt like that's really what I was going for, and I'm really happy with how this came out. So this is going to be the Punisher, is what this is going to be. So I think that's going to do it for the project in this video. So I think I'm going to stop it here, and we'll regroup in the next video. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think of the Ultra 24 build? This episode was fun. We packed a lot of stuff into this and got it into a great position. We got a good roller here with a good mock-up of what it's going to look like. So I'm really excited to take it to the next step. So in the next video, we'll put the powertrain in it. We'll dig up some drive shafts. We'll put a motor and transmission in it and the electronics, and we'll get this thing up and running. Also going to put the rest of the panels on it. So the next video, we'll complete the build and we'll take it out on the course, and we'll find some rocks and we'll do some run footage with it. It's going to be fun. I'm really excited to try this thing out to see how it performs. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks again to Little Guy Racing Parts for making a great kit and sending this over for me to try. And thanks again to Miguel Cortez for that assembly video. This would have been a whole lot more difficult had I not had that as a reference point. As always, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate your time. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so, and stay tuned for the next iteration of this build, and I'll see you in that video.